They said she wouldn't make it through the night. The machines were slowing. The nurses whispered. Her parents held her tiny hand and prayed for a miracle that medicine couldn't give. Then, the door opened, a soft click of claws on tile. A golden Labrador, Buddy, walked in, eyes full of something no human could explain. He climbed onto the bed, rested his paw on her chest, and pressed his head against her heart. For a moment, the room froze. Then, beep, another, then another. Stronger. Tears turned to disbelief, because in that quiet hospital room, something beyond science happened. A bond so deep it pulled her back from the edge. They said she wouldn't make it through the night. They were wrong. Like. Share, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. We read every comment. Morning arrived slower than usual, creeping through the hospital blinds as if afraid to disturb what had happened in the night. The doctors called it stabilization. Her parents called it mercy that didn't have a name yet. And somewhere between them, a golden dog had changed the ending everyone expected. 9-year-old. Emma lay beneath the soft hum of monitors, her hand still curled where Buddy's paw had rested hours before. The scent of him lingered in the sheets, grass. Home. Safety. It clung to her pulse like a promise that refused to fade. Outside, the ward stirred to life. Carts rolled, coffee brewed. Nurses whispered about vitals that had held steady through the dark. They checked the numbers twice, then a third time before daring to smile. Hope wasn't official yet, but it was awake. Her parents hadn't slept. They sat side by side, watching her chest rise and fall. Afraid to look away, her mother kept tracing the little pink collar lying on the table. Letters E and B glinting each time the sun reached them. Her father whispered, "He stayed." He really stayed. In another part of the city, Buddy was pacing. The handler who'd brought him the night before was filling out paperwork, explaining protocols that already felt irrelevant. The dog wasn't listening. His body pointed toward the elevator, muscles tense, ears tilted toward the sound of her name spoken somewhere far away. Back upstairs, Emma's eyelids fluttered. Her mother leaned forward instantly. "Good morning, sweetheart." A faint smile appeared, barely a curve, but enough. "Buddy," she murmured. "He'll be back soon," her father promised. And for the first time, those words felt true. The doctors gathered outside the room reviewing graphs, pretending logic could contain what had happened. Dr. Harrison scribbled, "Reevaluate treatment response," though he knew that wasn't what this was. He stared at the girl's photo clipped to her file, a bright-eyed child holding a golden puppy, and felt something tighten in his throat. "Keep monitoring," he said softly. "Whatever changed, let's not scare it away." Inside, Emma was waking fully now. Her first request wasn't water or breakfast. "Can I tell him a story?" Her mother laughed through tears. "You can tell him 100 stories." By mid-morning, permission was signed again. Buddy could visit as long as necessary. The staff pretended it was about therapy compliance, but the truth was simpler. They all wanted to see him walk through that door again. The corridor filled with whispers long before he arrived. Children pressed their faces to windows. Nurses peeked from behind curtains. Then came the sound, the click of claws on tile. A soft rhythm that turned heads and slowed hearts. The elevator opened, and golden light spilled out with him. Buddy trotted forward, leash slack in the volunteer's hand, eyes fixed on the room he remembered. He didn't hurry. He just moved with certainty, as if he'd been following the scent of faith itself. When the door to 214 opened, Emma gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Buddy!" The word rang through the hall like music. Her mother started crying again before she could stop herself. He crossed the floor in seconds, paused only once, and then rested his chin on the edge of her bed. She reached for him, fingers trembling, and he leaned closer until her palm pressed flat against the warmth of his fur. Everything in the room stilled. The machines. The people even time seemed to hold its breath. A single tone from the monitor rose, strong and sure. No one spoke. Her father covered his mouth. The nurse wiped her eyes. In that tiny space between silence and sound, belief found its way back into the room. Buddy climbed carefully onto the bed. Turning once before settling beside her legs, Emma laughed, a sound too bright for the sterile air. "You came back," she whispered. He answered with a low sigh. "The kind that sounds like understanding." The doctors documented the moment, though none of their notes could describe what they were witnessing. Numbers changed, but so did faces, hardened professionals now softened by wonder. Even Dr. Harrison lingered at the doorway longer than he meant to, whispering, "Keep going, kiddo." Afternoon sunlight stretched across the floor, painting everything gold. Emma dozed against Buddy's shoulder, one hand buried in his fur, the other still clutching her stuffed bunny. Her parents sat on either side, quiet, grateful, afraid to move too fast in case the spell was fragile. But this wasn't a spell. It was something older, sturdier, the kind of love that builds its own gravity. Outside, the rain clouds finally broke apart. The city glistened. Through the open window drifted the smell of wet pavement and lilac from the hospital garden below. Emma stirred, half asleep, whispering, "Smells like home." Her mother brushed her hair and whispered back, "That's because he brought it with him." Evening came, the lights dimmed, but no one suggested he leave. He lay at the foot of her bed, one ear twitching every time she shifted. Each sound from the monitor matched the rhythm of his breathing. The nurse on duty made a note of it, then drew a tiny heart beside the numbers. Her father leaned close to his wife. "Do you think this will last?" She nodded, eyes on their daughter. "I think it already has." For the first time in months, the ward was quiet for reasons that felt good. Down the hall, laughter echoed from another room, hope spreading like wildfire. At midnight, Emma woke briefly, eyes wide and clear. "Mom," she said, "I feel warm again." Her mother bent to kiss her forehead, realizing it wasn't fever. It was life returning. The monitors kept their steady pulse. Buddy lifted his head, looked once toward the hallway, and then back at her face. He didn't move again. He didn't need to. Somewhere between the hum of machines and the whisper of his breathing, the world finally exhaled. For the first time, no one was afraid of the night, and just as her parents began to drift toward sleep, a faint new sound joined the chorus, the elevator doors opening again down the hall, footsteps approaching, quick and urgent, carrying papers that would demand explanations. None of them could give. The morning after Buddy's return, the world inside room 214 felt lighter, as if even the walls had decided to breathe again. Emma's mother poured coffee with shaking hands. Unable to stop smiling at numbers that finally looked kind, her father whispered, "Look at her. She's sleeping like she used to." Emma stirred, eyelids fluttering open. Her first sight was sunlight spilling across the blanket. And right there, golden and real, Buddy's head resting against her knees. She blinked, unsure if she was still dreaming. Then his tail moved, slow and steady, and the dream turned into morning. He lifted his head, sniffed the air, and looked straight into her eyes. No confusion, no hesitation, just recognition. Deep and certain, her hand reached out on instinct. "Hey, boy," she whispered, voice soft but alive. The dog pressed closer, and for a moment, everything that had broken seemed to knit itself together again. Her parents froze, afraid even joy might scare it away. Then the monitor beeped once, strong, clear, rhythmic. Her father laughed. Her mother cried. Hope took its first fearless step back into the room. Nurses gathered at the doorway, pretending to check machines. They whispered to each other, careful not to disturb what felt sacred. "Look at her color," one said. "She's glowing." "Look at him," another whispered. He hasn't blinked once. By mid-morning, the ward had changed. The usual hum of routine felt softer, gentler. Every conversation carried that same quiet awe, the kind that follows. A story people don't quite understand, but can't stop believing in. Emma sat, upright with help from her mother. Buddy adjusted immediately, curling around her side to support her weight. She giggled when his fur tickled her cheek. "He's warm," she said. Her mother smiled through tears. "He always has been." Outside the window, the clouds parted. Sunlight poured across the bed, catching on the pink collar around Buddy's neck. The letters shimmered, E and B, their initials, side by side, glinting like a heartbeat made visible. The nurse entered quietly with a clipboard, but forgot to write anything down. Instead, she whispered, "Keep doing what you're doing, sweetheart." and left before the tears reached her eyes. Emma leaned close to Buddy's ear. "You saved me." He didn't move, didn't need to. Sometimes love answers best in silence. Hours slipped by unnoticed. Lunch trays came and went, untouched. Her parents talked softly, voices filled with a kind of awe usually reserved for churches and starlight. Dr. Harrison passed the door 3 times before finally stepping in. He glanced at the monitors, then at the girl and the dog, then back at the monitors again. "I don't know what's happening," he murmured. Her father smiled. "Maybe it's not supposed to be explained." The doctor chuckled softly. "Then I suppose we'll just call it beautiful." By afternoon, Emma wanted to move, not far, just to the window she'd been staring at for weeks. She reached for her mother's hand, but Buddy had already stood up, pressing his side against her leg, perfectly still, a living crutch made of loyalty, step by careful step. They crossed the room together. The floor felt cold under her bare feet, but she didn't care. At the window, she stared at the city below, cars, trees, light. It looked new, like a world remade. "Look, Buddy," she whispered. "It's bright again." He wagged once, slow and sure, as if he'd been waiting for her to notice. Down the hallway, nurses stopped what they were doing just to watch. Some filmed quietly on their phones. Others clasped hands together and smiled through tears. A few simply turned away, because sometimes happiness hurts to look at head-on. That night, she refused to let him leave. The hospital had rules, but the nurses pretended to forget them. They dimmed the lights and left a blanket near her bed, just in case he wanted comfort too. He didn't need it. He lay right beside her, chest against her hand, both of them breathing in perfect time. Her father whispered, "Do you think she'll remember this?" Her mother answered, "I think this is what she'll remember most." Outside, the city lights blinked like slow-moving stars. Inside, the little girl and her dog slept, their shadows melting into one shape against the glow of the machines. The room that had once held despair now pulsed with something unexplainable, peace, maybe, or faith. Morning arrived quiet and golden. Emma was still asleep, one arm draped over Buddy's back. Her mother sat nearby with coffee gone cold, unwilling to break the moment. Dr. Harrison stood by the doorway again, this time smiling. "I've never seen numbers like these," he said softly. Her father nodded. "Maybe because you've never measured love before," the doctor laughed under his breath. Unsure whether to agree or record it, but the data didn't lie. Every sign pointed to recovery faster than anyone could rationalize. That afternoon, the hallway outside her room filled with quiet excitement. Doctors whispered. Nurses compared notes. They had seen hope before, but not like this, not this fast, not this absolute. Not a child who was supposed to fade, suddenly asking for crayons and drawing sunshine. The director stopped by late in the day. He congratulated the family, shook hands, smiled politely. Then he glanced at the dog curled beside the bed and frowned ever so slightly. "There may be some." "Procedural concerns," he said carefully. Emma's father's smile faltered. "Concerns?" "About extended animal presence in sterile zones," the director said. "We'll need to review." Her mother's jaw tightened. "You'll do what you need to." "But he's not leaving." The director hesitated, realizing there was no argument strong enough to win. He nodded and stepped back. "I'll speak to administration," he said quietly, then turned away. When he was gone, Emma looked up, eyes wide. "They're not taking Buddy, right?" Her mother smoothed her hair. "No one's taking anyone, honey, not now. Not ever." Buddy lifted his head, pressing his paw against her arm, as if sealing that promise himself. Outside, thunder rumbled far in the distance, a storm forming, slow and uncertain. Inside, Emma giggled, oblivious to it all, tracing circles on his fur while humming softly to herself. Her father leaned toward her mother, whispering, "He knows." "He always knows," she nodded. "He's her heartbeat outside her body." The lights flickered once as the storm rolled closer. A nurse peeked in to check, smiling at the sight of them still together. But when she turned away, the monitor behind Emma's bed glowed brighter than before, its rhythm shifting, pulsing in perfect sync with the golden dog beside her. No one saw it yet, not the doctor, not the nurses, not the family. Only the dog seemed to know. His ears twitched, his eyes never leaving the small hand resting over his heart. Outside, the first drops of rain hit the glass. Inside, the monitor's light pulsed once more, a heartbeat stronger than any the machines had ever recorded. By dawn, the storm had passed. But whispers filled the hospital halls like leftover thunder. Everyone had seen the numbers. Vitals too strong, too sudden, too impossible. Some called it divine, others called it coincidence. Either way, the girl in room 214 had become the story everyone wanted to believe. Emma woke to the scent of rain and the steady warmth pressed against her side. Buddy was still there, eyes half closed, ears twitching with every sound. Her mother smiled from the armchair, exhausted but grateful. Her father stood at the window, staring out at a sky scrubbed clean by night. The doctor entered quietly, clipboard against his chest. "Good morning, sunshine," he said. Emma grinned. "You're late." Buddy wagged once, as if to back her up. Laughter rippled through the room, a sound that felt like sunlight. But outside that door, not everyone was laughing. Administrators were meeting again, talking about protocol, liability, regulations. They said the dog's presence was uncontrolled, that emotions could cloud judgment, that results might be misinterpreted. Dr. Harrison listened for a while, then closed the folder in front of him. "She's alive," he said simply. The room fell silent. Back upstairs, Emma was sketching. Her drawing showed a little girl and a dog beneath a rainbow. Across the top, she wrote in crooked letters, "Love is medicine." The nurse who came to check vitals paused to look. "That's beautiful," she whispered. Emma nodded seriously. "It's true." The nurse left the room with tears she couldn't explain. By midday, reporters began calling. A photo from the hallway, Emma sitting up in bed with Buddy asleep across her feet, had gone. Viral headlines called him the dog who healed. The hospital phones wouldn't stop ringing. Emma's parents ignored it all, focusing only on the girl in front of them. Dr. Harrison spent the afternoon running comparisons. Every major improvement in Emma's condition aligned perfectly with Buddy's visits. Graphs overlapped like a duet, too, rhythms echoing each other. He stared at the printouts until his eyes blurred. It wasn't random, it was connection made visible. That evening, the director came to the room again. He offered polite smiles, congratulations, and then cleared his throat. "For safety reasons," he began, "we may need to limit the dog's access while we review our findings." Her father stiffened. Her mother stood slowly, voice low but steady. "He's not leaving," she said. The director adjusted his glasses. "It's temporary." "Not a chance," her father interrupted. "You remove that dog and you'll have to remove us too." The man hesitated, then left without another word. The silence that followed was sharp and fragile. Emma's mother sat back down, shaking. Buddy looked between them, sensing the shift. He pressed his head into Emma's lap until her small hands calmed again. Outside, the sky darkened early. Rain returned steady and soft, tapping the glass like an old lullaby. Inside, Emma started to hum along with it. Her parents exchanged a look. They hadn't heard her hum in months. She was getting stronger by the minute, but the stronger she became, the deeper the questions grew. Dr. Harrison knew the board would demand answers soon. He spent hours comparing scans, vitals, patterns. Each result pulled him further from science and closer to faith. At some point, he stopped writing notes altogether and just watched through the window. Emma was laughing again, and Buddy's tail thumped in time with her heartbeat. Later that night, he sat in the staff lounge, staring at the coffee swirling in his cup. Another doctor asked, "You really think the dog's doing this?" He didn't look up. "I think she started living the moment he walked in. You can label that however you want." Back in room 214, the lights dimmed for the night. The family was finally asleep. Only Buddy stayed awake, eyes reflecting the faint green glow of the monitor. He listened to the rhythm of machines, to the slow breathing of the girl he'd promised silently to guard. When her breathing hitched, he nudged her hand until it steadied again. Just after midnight, footsteps echoed in the hall. 2 orderlies stopped outside the door, whispering, "She's asleep." The director said, "Move the dog to recovery for the night." The other hesitated. "You sure?" "Orders." They opened the door quietly. The room was almost dark except for the faint blue light of the monitors. Buddy lifted his head before they even stepped inside. The air changed. Tense. Alert. Waiting. "Easy, boy," one of them murmured. He reached for the leash looped around the bedpost. Buddy didn't growl, didn't bark, just stared, unblinking. Emma's hand moved in her sleep, fingers brushing his ear. His body went still again, protecting that touch. "Maybe come back later," the younger orderly whispered. The other shook his head. "Orders are orders." As he reached forward again, Emma's voice broke the silence. "Don't take him." Both men froze. Her eyes were open now, shining in the half-light. "Please." "He's helping me." The older man looked guilty, muttered something, and lowered the leash. "Sorry, kid." He turned toward the door, only to find Dr. Harrison standing there, face stern, papers clutched in one hand. "She's right," he said. "He stays." The men stepped back without argument. When the door closed, the doctor exhaled hard. He looked at Buddy, then at the child. "Seems you've written your own treatment plan," he murmured. Emma smiled faintly and drifted back to sleep, her hand resting on golden fur. The room fell into stillness again. Outside, the storm rumbled once, distant and harmless. Hours later, Dr. Harrison sat alone in his office, flipping through charts one last time. He noticed something new. Every surge in Emma's vitals aligned, not just with the dog's visits, but with his heart rate, too, captured by a sensor during earlier scans. Her body responded to his heartbeat. It was synchronization, pure and inexplicable. He pushed back from the desk, papers scattering. He needed to show her parents, needed to prove it. But before he reached the door, the intercom crackled. "Dr. Harrison to room 214. Urgent!" His chest tightened. He ran. The hallway lights flickered as he reached the door. Inside, the nurse stood frozen, hand over her mouth. Emma sat upright, eyes wide. Buddy pressed close against her. The monitor above them glowed bright green, numbers climbing higher than ever. "Doctor," the nurse stammered, "her readings, look at them." He did, and for the first time he smiled through tears. It wasn't danger. It was life surging back faster than the machines could measure. Then the lights flashed again, white, brilliant, blinding. Everyone shielded their eyes. When it faded, the monitor beeped once, sharp and clear. Emma was still sitting upright, Buddy steady at her side, both of them calm, both of them glowing in the faint halo of the machines. No one spoke, no one moved. Only the rain kept falling, soft against the window, as if the world itself had just witnessed something it couldn't explain. Light filled the room like a wave, white, warm, and alive. For a heartbeat no one could see. Then the glare softened, and the outlines returned, the bed, the monitors. The little girl sitting upright with her dog pressed close against her. The beeping steadied, strong and sure. Her parents stood frozen near the wall. The nurse whispered, "Everything's normal," but it didn't feel normal. It felt right, as if the world had tilted back into place after too long in the dark. Dr. Harrison lowered his hand from his eyes, staring at the screen. The numbers blinked higher than he'd ever seen. Yet Emma looked calm. No panic, no strain. She was smiling, faint but real, one hand tangled in Buddy's fur. "What happened?" her mother asked. He didn't answer immediately, because he didn't know. The nurse checked cables, reconnected sensors, ran tests that only confirmed what everyone already felt. Emma was steady, strong, and alive. Buddy lay still, head against her knee, chest rising and falling in perfect time with hers. Minutes passed in silence. Dr. Harrison finally stepped closer, voice low. "I think he's helping her heart keep rhythm," he said. Her father frowned. "You mean the sound calms her?" The doctor shook his head. "No, I mean it matches her." They looked down. Each beat on the monitor echoed Buddy's breathing exactly. Inhale, exhale, pulse life, two hearts moving as one. Outside, dawn pushed through the last clouds. Golden light fell across the room, catching on the collar around Buddy's neck. The letters shimmered, E and B, their bond written in metal and memory. Emma traced them with her thumb. "We're a team," she said softly. Her mother bent, kissing her forehead. Always. That morning, the hospital buzzed with quiet disbelief. Doctors compared data, rechecked charts. muttered about biofeedback and synchronized vitals, but their explanations sounded small next to the truth unfolding behind that door. The director called an emergency meeting. He demanded logic, procedure, proof. No one could give him any. Finally, Dr. Harrison closed the folder and said, "Maybe we stop looking for what can't be measured." No one replied. Back in the room, Emma was sketching again. Her crayon glided across paper. Blue sky, green grass, and a golden dog with a heart drawn over his chest. At the top, she wrote, "He makes me brave." A nurse leaned over her shoulder, smiling through tears. "That's beautiful." Emma shrugged like it was obvious. "He told me to draw it." Buddy lifted his head, tail brushing the blanket once, as if confirming every word. By noon, her vitals reached normal ranges. Her appetite returned. She laughed when Buddy stole a bite of her sandwich and wagged when he was caught. The entire ward could hear her laughter, and each echo felt like oxygen for everyone who had almost forgotten what hope sounded like. Dr. Harrison stopped by every few hours, clipboard mostly untouched. He wasn't studying anymore, he was witnessing. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted to her parents. Her mother said quietly, "Maybe you've just never seen love this loud." Afternoon melted into gold. Emma napped with her hand still on Buddy's back. Her father watched the sunlight dance across them both and whispered, "This is what healing looks like." Her mother nodded, tears on her cheeks. "And this is what faith feels like." Down the hallway, staff whispered about what had happened, about the light, the readings, the impossible recovery. Some called it divine, some said the machines glitched, but no one could deny that a child was alive because a dog had refused to let her go. That evening, Dr. Harrison stood in front of his colleagues. The latest test results spread across the table. He pointed to the overlapping rhythms, the girl's pulse and the dog's breathing, identical from the moment he entered the room. "It's not science versus faith," he said. "It's both, working together." The room stayed silent. Even skepticism felt smaller than wonder. Back in room 214, Emma woke to find the sunset painting the ceiling in shades of rose and gold. Buddy was already watching her, head tilted, eyes glowing in the light. She smiled. "You stayed again." He blinked slowly, as if to say, "Where else would I go?" Her mother brought dinner, but forgot to eat. She was too busy staring at her daughter's face, colorful, lively, full of something fierce and new. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, "you know what happened, right?" Her mother hesitated. "What do you think happened?" Emma glanced at Buddy, then back at her. "He gave me his heartbeat." The room fell silent. Her father's eyes filled. The monitor beeped once, softly, almost like a nod. Outside, wind moved through the trees, carrying the smell of wet earth and lilac. Inside, the truth sat quietly between them, so simple it didn't need explaining. By late evening, visitors gathered near the door. Two moved to enter. Afraid to break the fragile peace, the lights dimmed. The city beyond the window shimmered. Emma leaned back against her pillow, hand still resting over Buddy's chest. Dr. Harrison stopped by one last time before leaving for the night. He smiled at her and said, "You've got the whole world talking about you." Emma giggled. "Tell them it's not about me. It's about us." The doctor nodded. "That's exactly what I'll say." When he left, the family settled into the quiet again. The machines hummed softly, like distant lullabies. Buddy lifted his head once, ears twitching toward the window. Something in the air had shifted again, too subtle for the humans to sense, but clear as day to him. He stood, paused silent on the tile, eyes fixed on the glass. Outside, the first stars appeared. Emma followed his gaze. "What is it, boy?" Her mother stood too, drawn by the strange stillness. Then she saw it, the faint glow outside. A reflection in the glass, not from the monitors, but from something beyond the building. It shimmered for a moment, soft and pulsing, like light remembering its way home. The machines picked up a new rhythm, gentle but strong. The screen blinked twice, then steadied again. Her father frowned. "Is that normal?" Dr. Harrison, returning to check one last thing, looked up from the data and froze. "No," he whispered. "That's something else." The light outside grew brighter, filling the room again, the same brilliance they'd seen before, but calmer this time, like an answer instead of a question. Emma turned toward her parents, smiling through the glow. "It's okay," she said softly. "I understand now." Her mother stepped closer, heart pounding. "Understand what?" Emma looked down at Buddy, eyes full of wonder. "He didn't just come back to help me. He came to remind everyone what love looks like when it refuses to stop." The light brightened once more. Every monitor beeped in harmony, one pure, perfect note that lingered until silence took its place. The glow faded, leaving the room bathed in gold. Emma and Buddy were still there, calm, breathing, steady. Her parents wept quietly, overwhelmed by gratitude too big for words. Then the monitor flickered again, showing something new, two separate rhythms side by side, but moving together perfectly. Her mother gasped. Dr. Harrison leaned closer, whispering, "It's both of them." Outside, thunder rolled far in the distance, soft, approving. Inside, Buddy pressed closer, his heartbeat visible on the screen next to hers, and as everyone watched, one final line of text appeared across the monitor, generated automatically by the machine's software. "Signal linked, synchronized source detected." Dr. Harrison's breath caught. "It's real," he murmured. Her parents clung to each other. Emma smiled through half-closed eyes. "I told you," she whispered. "We share one heart." The screen blinked again, once, and then everything in the room went still. Morning broke in soft gold. The storm had gone, leaving the hospital washed in quiet light. Room 214 no longer sounded like a place of fear. It sounded like life returning home. Emma slept peacefully. Buddy curled beside her, their breathing still in perfect rhythm. Her parents sat hand in hand near the window, watching sunlight crawl across the floorboards. Every few seconds the monitors blinked, a slow, steady pulse that seemed to echo gratitude itself. Dr. Harrison entered quietly. He had stopped bringing clipboards. There was nothing left to measure. He stood for a long moment, taking in the picture before him, the little girl, the golden dog, the light pouring over both like a blessing. "This," he whispered, "is what every miracle looks like before it has a name." By noon, discharge papers were ready. The nurses lined the hall, pretending to tidy carts while wiping their eyes. Emma wanted to walk out on her own. So Buddy rose first, standing tall, waiting for her hand to rest on his back. Step by careful step, they moved together through the corridor. Each footfall was a declaration that faith had won. At the exit, a brass bell hung from the wall. Tradition said, "You rang it once when recovery was official." Emma hesitated, looking down at Buddy. "Ready?" she whispered. He wagged once. The bell rang clear and bright, the sound racing down every hallway and out into the city. Outside, the sky was wide and forgiving. For the first time in months, she felt wind on her face. Buddy barked once, tail sweeping the air as if to announce their return. Her father laughed. Her mother cried. People passing on the sidewalk stopped, sensing something sacred in the simple sight of a girl and her dog walking into sunlight. Home waited, familiar yet new. The swing on the porch creaked. The garden smelled of rain and lilac. Buddy bounded ahead, nose to the ground, circling back every few steps to make sure she was following. When she reached the gate, she dropped to her knees and buried her face in his fur. "We made it," she whispered. He leaned into her, eyes closing, content at last. Days folded into each other like pages in a book. You never want to end. Morning walks, evening laughter, breakfast, crumbs shared under the table. Every heartbeat a reminder of what they'd survived. Letters began arriving from around the world. Some came from parents whose children were sick, others from doctors who wanted to understand. A few simply said, "Thank you for reminding us why we hope." Emma kept them all in a wooden box tied with a pink ribbon. Whenever she opened it, Buddy would nudge her elbow, tail brushing the floor as if to say, "See? We did something good." One afternoon, an envelope from the hospital arrived. Inside was a proposal and a single sentence, "Let's build something in their name." The project was simple, powerful, inevitable. Therapy dogs for every ward, every child who needed a heartbeat beside their own. They called it the Buddy Program. The day they unveiled it, Emma stood in the hospital lobby surrounded by nurses and reporters. She wore a small white dress. Buddy wore a fresh pink collar with a gold tag. The plaque on the wall read, "In honor of Emma and Buddy, proof that love can heal." Applause filled the hall. Emma blushed, hiding her face against his neck. When she looked up again, she saw children waving from the windows above, each with a therapy dog by their bed. Hope had multiplied. Years passed gently. Buddy's muzzle turned silver, but his eyes stayed young. Every photo on the family wall showed the same thing, a girl and her dog, side by side, always touching. When she started school again, she told classmates her best friend had 4 paws and a doctorate in miracles. They laughed, but they believed her anyway. As she grew older, Emma began speaking at events for the Buddy program. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady, carrying the message she'd learned before she was old enough to spell it. Love is the language the body never forgets. Each time she finished, Buddy would lift his head from beside the stage and wag, accepting the applause as much his as hers. On quiet evenings, they'd sit on the porch watching fireflies blink across the yard. Emma would rest her head on his shoulder and whisper secrets only he could keep. "You know," she'd say, "they still call it a miracle." Buddy would sigh, the sound halfway between a breath and a laugh. Maybe he thought the word was too small. The hospital continued to grow its program. Hundreds of therapy animals trained under the banner of a story that began with one little girl and one stubborn golden heart. Every year, they invited Emma back to ring the bell again, not for recovery, but for remembrance. Each ring echoed through the halls like a promise renewed. Time, as it always does, moved quietly forward. Emma grew into a young woman. Buddy grew old with grace. His step slowed, but his spirit never dimmed. Even on the days when his eyes were tired, he still followed her from room to room, unwilling to let distance rewrite destiny. One summer evening, long after the world had stopped calling her the miracle girl, she sat with him in the yard, watching the sunset turn everything gold. He rested his head in her lap. "Hey, boy," she whispered, "remember when they said I wouldn't make it?" His tail thumped once, slow and sure. She smiled. "We showed them, didn't we?" The breeze stirred the grass. The world went perfectly still. She closed her eyes and listened, not to the wind, not to the faint sounds of the street, but to that old, familiar rhythm she could feel even now. One heartbeat, then another moving together. Love, she thought, never leaves. It just changes shape. Somewhere miles away in another hospital room, a therapy dog curled beside a frightened child. The machine steadied. The air warmed. And though no one said it out loud, everyone felt the same truth ripple through the room, the same truth Emma and Buddy had written years before. They said she wouldn't make it through the night. But she did. And because she did, hope found a way to stay. The porch light flickered as twilight deepened. Emma looked down at the dog beside her and whispered, "Thank you." The stars blinked awake overhead, one by one, as if answering back, and from that night forward, whenever someone rang the bell for healing, the sound carried farther than anyone could measure, a soft, golden echo of 2 hearts that once beat as one. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe love itself can heal. Tell us where you're watching from. We read every comment.